From primary school to sell-out concerts. It's going to happen one of these days. Voice like yours, got to.
Well, it's one of the best I've ever heard.
That's my daughter. That's my Amy.
Marisa, I imagine every aspect of this role is quite nerve-wracking, but was there a particular thing in the script you were just waiting for that filming day to come up to almost get it out of the way?
Get it out of the way? Yeah. Oh, that's tricky. I mean, there were days that I was really excited about. To things that, I mean, I guess the first day that I knew I was going to have to sing on set, I was quite nervous about, because I'd been singing for so long, like in the privacy of my singing teacher's room, and even Abbey Road Studios or in front of Sam. But there's something about singing in front of a room full of other actors and the whole crew and all of the essays that were there that day. You know, there is a certain pressure to deliver, you know, and you kind of know everyone's secretly like, what's she going to sound like, you know?
Yeah.
So that was probably nerve-wracking, yeah.
Yeah, and for you, Sam, like, it wasn't always planned that Marisa was going to sing throughout this, but incredible vocals.
It was hopeful.
I'm gonna say so. And how did that change the film you thought you were making in your head to, like, realise you had this extra aspect you could use?
I mean, I don't know. I sort of have, I live life with a lot of optimism always. And so I kind of, after I met with Marisa and knew that she had the job, I knew she had a really strong work ethic, because in the audition she said, whoever gets to dive in and do all the work on this. So I kind of had a sense that she was going to deliver something extraordinary. And, you know, and then sort of going off and working with a voice and singing coach, I just sort of had this sort of sense it was going to work, but you also at the same time think, but you know, it's such a far reach, what if it doesn't? And then in my mind it was more like, I kept sort of thinking, it could, it might, it will, it could, it might, it will. But if it doesn't, I'd have that in my back pocket to be able to, you know, obviously dub. But I don't know, I just had this sort of innate feeling that the work that she was going to would get us to an amazing place. I didn't actually know that we'd get to this amazing place where she sings the whole movie.
Yeah, and filming on location in Camden, like Camden is so interlinked with Amy's story. Did that bring an extra level to the performance because you're on the place? It brought extra scrutiny with set photos and whatnot, but did it also help you elevate the performance?
I mean, I think in the end, like, you know, it's worth it to have Camden and be a part of our film, you know. We did like 54 locations in 45 days or something like that. So we were like out and about on the streets and like, but how can you tell Amy's story without Camden? I don't, you know, she had the means at a certain point in her life to be anywhere she wanted in the world, and, you know, whatever gated community she wanted to be in, but like she wanted to be in Camden and on the streets of Camden and in the pubs of Camden and on Primrose Hill. So like, who were we to film this anywhere else? I mean, like you say, it came with a lot of interest, but I just don't know where else you'd have shot this film.
Yeah, sure. For you, Sam, you would know that you're taking on this icon and Amy Winehouse, beloved by so many. Yeah. So you'd expect a certain scrutiny, but this was like a Marvel blockbuster level with like set photos coming out. Did that almost surprise you? Like the sheer level of it?
I mean, it didn't really surprise me. I mean, it sort of at times threatened to slow us down, and we were having to move at quite a pace. But it didn't surprise me because I knew that she was so beloved, and I knew that there was a huge fan base, and so just sort of feeling that sort of intensity coming at us, just felt like I had to just sort of, you know, be very sort of zen about it and try and zone it out and make the movie that I wanted to make, and not listen too much to all the noise. But yeah, it was intense at times.
Yeah. Sure, I think, you know, I understand it though, like, you know, you put a lot, I think it's kind of like, I hope you gotta think like, you know, I feel like this too, like this amount of pressure, like this. I mean, it's also, of course, there's like these whatever, but I mean, no one thought as much as me of like, this has to be right. Yeah. And I think that's kind of all I would say on it, is that like, that if anyone thinks like, God, this has to be good, it was me.
Me.
exactly, yeah.
Just finally, what are you hoping that Amy Winehouse fans and maybe people who don't necessarily know her story as well get out of this movie when it comes out in cinemas?
The music. It really comes back to the music, and I think what we do with the film is really, you know, sort of celebrate her. So, you know, we all know the tragedy, and, you know, her life has been so sort of picked apart, but what I wanted to do was sort of just be with her, be in her perspective, and to sort of really understand her music and her lyrics and be guided by them, to the point where when you come out of the cinema, I feel like everyone's going to want to just go straight home and play the music. Yeah. And I think that's the biggest gift back to her in that way.
I've never been in a film where more people were commenting on it without seeing it. Me and Marisa would do a scene and there would be supporting artists playing the paparazzi, but the real paparazzi would sneak in and take photographs, and then we would have photographs of us on set. Within an hour they would be on the internet and there would be all these comments, and poor Marisa was trying so hard to give an honest testimony of Amy, and we just had to take no notice of it, just carry on and doing what, you know, just serve the script and serve the idea as best as possible.
Yeah, for me it really did actually. It sounds a little naive because looking back I guess we should have expected it. I expected some interest, but I didn't expect the level of interest that we had immediately. You know, we were surrounded by paparazzi in the same way that Amy had been surrounded by paparazzi, and, you know, had to take on extra security and all that kind of stuff to deal with that. So we expected a level of interest that you always have if you're making a movie, but and I thought that would be slightly more than normal, but I didn't expect the torrent that emerged almost immediately.
When you're approaching playing a real life person, do you sort of have to approach it in a slightly different way to other roles, or is it kind of the same idea in the sense of the approach?
My point of reference is always the script. You have to honour the writer. The writer sat in a room for 2 years, 3 years, sweating over every word, every comma, every full stop. So you have to honour what the writers come up with. When you're playing somebody so iconic, you've got to make sure you don't do an imitation. You've got to try to honour the physicality, the voice, the mannerisms, but don't imitate. You've got to find, because an imitation is not the same as an emotional authenticity.
Yeah, and to that end, Matt has spoken about the fact that he took the story from the things that are already out there as opposed to talking to the family. So for yourself, did you meet Mitch? Did you feel you needed to?
Yeah, Sam introduced me to Mitch. I mean, the family doesn't have any kind of artistic control over the film. It's Sam's film. But as soon as she introduced me to Mitch, I just hounded the poor man, to be honest with you. I sat with him on numerous occasions. I asked him about every aspect of his life, his childhood in the East End, who his grandparents were, who his great-grandparents were. I asked him about his where he went to school, how he first met Janice, Amy's mum. I asked him to come up with a playlist that kind of represented the music he listened to as a child. He gave me endless photographs of his uncles and aunts and all this stuff. And he was very, very self-aware and candid and honest about the mistakes he made with Amy. But one of the things that came over to me, and it's one of the reasons why when I was working on it, I wrote at the top of the script, he's a father. That's what he is. He's a father, and that's exactly how I played him.
Yeah, and it feels like the story of Amy, especially for everyone in the UK, it feels like we know her. It feels like because of how intensely people followed her. But talking to Mitch or even to other people on this film, was there a particular element that surprised you that you weren't necessarily aware of from Amy's life from this?
Not really. I kind of knew it. I mean, because as soon as I got the script, then I spoke to Mitch. I think one of the things that is how young her and Blake were, you know, and we, how they were in an impossible situation and they were so young, and I don't know many people of that age who could deal with who could come out of that untarnished.
Yeah, and Marisa is superb.
She's
as
incredible.
Amy. Like her vocals are astonishing. When you're on set, but you never really know until someone's actually performing as the person. Well, is there a particular moment you still remember? You're like, yeah, that's Amy.
I was just so. There was one day when Marissa's mum, who's an actress, came on set, and she's a Mike Leigh actress. I'm a Mike Leigh actor. And we were sitting on set, and there was a soundtrack of the music there was a playback of one of the songs. I think it was Back to Black. It might have been Back to Black, and Marissa's mum didn't realise that was Marisa, not Amy Winehouse.
Oh, wow.
And I had to explain to her, no, that's Marisa. And that was when I realised how brilliant she was.
Alison, I want to take you right back to the very beginning. What was the particular spark that made you want to make a movie about Amy Winehouse?
I came at the film. Came at it not as a film producer, but as an Amy Winehouse fan. You know, I love Amy Winehouse's music. I feel like she's the greatest musical artist of the 21st century so far, and I felt that her legacy as a musical artist was in danger of becoming overshadowed by her tragic death and early death. And popular culture is often very taken up by those kind of tragedies, and particularly with female artists. And you could see her sort of descending into a lexicon of Judy Garland and Janis Joplin, and that becoming the story. And I wanted to reclaim her story and let us all celebrate the extraordinary musical legacy that she left, rather than her tragic demise.
Yeah, definitely. And for you, Matt, did you always know that it was going to be largely focused around like the Back to Black album, like the build up to it and response to it, or was that something that came during the process?
It came during the process. We looked at all the albums and we took all the music, and I mean, I listened to every track that she'd ever did, and even to the end of her career when she set up her own label. We were even thinking of, you know, Lioness of Camden, because it was Lioness Records. So, you know, it was a whole deep dive to begin with, to see what really worked for the celebratory narrative we wanted to tell. And then once we decided on that, then it was just go mode.
Yeah. And Marisa is superb as Amy, but even when you're casting someone that you know is talented, there's always that little bit that you're never quite sure it will work until it's starting to work. Yeah. So for both of you, was there a particular moment on set you were like, yes, this is working, this is going to do it?
I think for me it wasn't on set. It was actually after we had pretty much cast Marisa, but we went to Abbey Road to do a little bit of filming and with her singing. And when we first put her on camera that day and we heard her, she literally only had one lesson with a voice coach. And as soon as we saw that, we were like, wow, there's Amy. And we just knew we were in good hands, which of course is a huge relief, because the film was about Amy Winehouse. If you haven't got the best person playing Amy Winehouse, you might as well pack up and go home. But at that point, we knew that we could keep going.
It was day one outside Ronnie Scott's, and her walking in, and she just embodied her. And then I got kicked off for COVID, so I only saw one shot, but that one
great shot.
I forgot that.
You're going to see any shots here outside of Ronnie Scott's?
I saw outside Ronnie Scott's, and I'd come all the way from Manchester for 3 hours just to see that one shot, but it was worth it because I just saw, you know, her and Eddie, and it was just wow. It just felt right.